to the Mike on Much podcast. I am your host, Mike Veerman, and I am here with my friend and producer, Max Kerman.
Good to be here.
And in a change of protocol, we also have, early on in the episode, our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham.
Hello.
We're doing a three-man pod.
Just an excuse to hang out.
Front to back today.
You know, I want to say before we get going, we need more subscribers on iTunes. So I don't know if we actually do, but I feel like that's something podcasters say all the time.
Sure.
Guys, it's really important. You spread the word, you subscribe, you give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. So if you haven't done that, you got 2 things to do. Three things. Subscribe, tell your friends, 5 stars. Do it right now. That's my producing job done.
Okay, so this weekend, lots is going on here. First of all, today on the show, we have actor David Arquette.
Woo!
We will get to him in a bit. Later in the episode, during the dessert, we're all going to sit around and talk about Steve Jobs, because the three of us saw it this weekend separately.
Yeah, in a moment of organization, I got an email from Mike saying, hey, can you see Steve Jobs? I was like, that's the job that I should be doing, organizing the show. But you did it. And
he didn't even ask you to see it. He just CC'd you on it.
Oh, really?
And said, Shane, can you see it? And then you're like, on it, just watch it.
So I didn't even read the email properly.
You're a busy man. But that's not the only thing we did this weekend, because Shane, you and I went to the Bufferfest sort of closing night party.
Explain what Bufferfest is.
Bufferfest is this big sort of thing that happens that involves all the creators, YouTubers. They had like a screening of new videos on the Friday night.
All I know is it had an open bar on the Sunday night. Which that's the only bar we went to.
Yes.
Yeah, we got very crunk daddied.
So we went, you were just saying though, you were talking to For Y'all.
Yeah, I had done a shoot previously with For Y'all, and For Y'all is a very popular YouTube, like, I guess they're like a comedy troupe, like a cool black guy comedy troupe.
Yeah.
And
they're all very like hot young black dudes, basically.
yes. Anyways, the one cool guy, he kind of recognizes me, and he walks up and gives me like a cool shake. I get really nervous at those.
I love those.
I kind of.
I'm good at those.
You really?
Yeah.
He gives me this handshake, and I execute it perfectly for once in my life. So I'm feeling good, and I'm like, all right. So obviously the For Y'all guys remember me. So the older brother, he's kind of like the cool one. He runs the show, the whole troupe. I go up and I pinch his butt because I think we're cool friends. And he looks at me, and I do the thing where you point at someone else. So I point at Alex, and I'm like, oh,
Your girlfriend?
I'm like, yeah, he'll think it's funny. Like, oh, this hot girl pinched my butt or whatever. And then he just looked at me disgusted and was like, who the fuck are you? And then kind of shook his head, and I said something that I can't remember, and then turned and walked away. So yeah, it was a horrible interaction, that part.
Oh, Shane.
Yeah. Well, still, 50% of the crew likes me.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah, open bar. You never know.
Yeah, you'll never be invited back. Yeah, well, that's not the only thing that's been going on this weekend, although that was a fun time, and thanks to Much for having us to their closing night gala for Bufferfest. Max, you played a homecoming show at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario this weekend.
Yeah, it was an awesome show. The band's been really busy for the last month and a half. Because we were in LA, and then we did some US dates on in New York and Boston, Philly, DC. Then we went right into recording. So it's just been kind of a crazy time. So for old time's sake, I asked your brother, Greg, who's my roommate, and our old friend, Dan Hamilton, who's like Greg's childhood best friend, one of my best friends, if they wanted to do a little road trip up to Kingston for the night. And we're like, it would be like old times, because, back in the early band days, they'd come to like a lot of the college shows, and, we'd play the show, and then we'd go out, and it'd just be a fun thing to do. And it is kind of funny, because we're all like 30-year-old men at this point now. So we drive up to Kingston. It feels like it's like a 30-minute car ride, because we're all just blabbering at each other, and it's just like super fun. Listen to the new Adele song. We cried a little bit, like at 2 PM. It was
Seriously?
Awesome. No, we didn't cry, but we
a lot of crying going on in this podcast.
So it's like 6:00, and we're sitting around at dinner, and I have to play at like 10:00. Like no one's had like a drop of alcohol yet, and we're sitting around, and I go to Dan, because Dan is recently single. I say, Dan, are you going to go on Tinder? And I've never had a chance to go on Tinder, because I've been in a relationship for the last 5 years, basically.
Why are you winking at me right now? What does that mean? What does that mean?
You're not supposed to say that.
Oh shit. Sorry, continue.
So I'm like, Dan, you should go on Tinder and just to see what's going on in Kingston. Who knows? So Dan goes, should I? And Greg's like, oh, you definitely should. So Greg and I are just poking Dan. So Dan sets up his profile again, because it's been dormant. And he picks like 5 like hunky photos that he's taken very like to make him look like a male model, and he's feeling pretty good about himself. In the 5th photo, I'm sitting with him in this booth, like in a bar. That's like the 5th photo. So it's not the first one you see. It's not the 2nd, 3rd, 4th. It's the 5th one, the last one.
But the 5th one's the most important, by the way.
Why is this?
Because 5th one's the one people use as the real litmus test for what you really look like, and it's the one people tend to sit on the most when they go through and swipe through. So I told Dan the 5th is the most important. I also told Dan Max is a pussy magnet, so make sure to put him in.
I wasn't really thinking about all those things. All I was thinking about was that I like the fact that Dan's doing this because I get to sort of live vicariously through him. It's just like a fun thing to do. And also, like, I like kind of being a part of the action. So I didn't really my idea was that, like, if someone was going through Dan's and they happen to see me, I just like the fact, because I'm a narcissistic lead singer, right? That's sort of who I am. And so they'd be like, oh, there's Max from the Arquettes. Like, that's a cool thing. So that's what my mindset was. Then we go, what should the bio be? And Greg, who I think is hilarious, he works with you guys. He's a great copywriter. I go, Greg, what's the copy? And by the way, no one says what's the copy when they're writing Tinder. Only people in your line of work say what's the copy. We got to come up with some good copy for this. And Greg goes, in town for homecoming, looking for a home to come in. And come in is like CUM dash.
Oh, now I get it. Yeah.
And so I think that's hilarious, just because I have a soft spot for any of you guys. And I'm like, that's it. Put it up. So it's keep in mind 6 o'clock. Nobody's been drinking or anything. It's all like very civilized.
You just think it's funny, but juvenile, crass, but
and
funny.
obviously people will get
inconsequential.
Totally inconsequential. Dan puts it up at about 6:10, like literally 10 minutes later. He goes, "Oh, this is stupid. I'm not going on Tinder. This is."
So he took it down at 10 minutes after he put it up.
Literally 10 minutes. Okay, so whatever. Played the show. Awesome show. All the bars were packed. We couldn't get into anything. It was raining. It was a terrible night. But we knew a few people throwing this party. Like, there's so many like student houses there. So we go to this party at about 1:30 in the morning. We got off stage at 12. We're at this house party. 1:30 in the morning. Dan from across the kitchen in this house we're in just shows me a phone that's been given to him, and it's a screenshot of Dan's Tinder profile, but it says it's in the Facebook page Queen's Happenings.
Oh, geez.
And it says, like, when the lead guitarist is looking for a home to come in, and it's just a screen cap of Dan's Tinder profile from literally 8 hours ago.
Wait, you let Dan play guitar at that show?
So somebody screen grabbed it and put it in this Facebook page group. And it was 1:30 in the morning. I didn't know anything about the Facebook page, and I just thought it was like a funny thing. So Dan was like, look at this. And I go, oh, God, okay, that's funny. Anyway, carry on with whatever conversation I was having. We get some poutine at the end of the night, and we go to bed. We go back to the hotel. We go to bed. The next morning, I get some texts from the Arquette's guys, and they're like, dude, this thing that's been posted in this Facebook group has 21,000 people in the Facebook group, and the right now is 400 likes. Like, this is a terrible look. People think that it's like your Tinder profile, despite the fact it says Dan, age 31. I'm Max, age 28.
And you did have a guy named Dan in your group.
But we did have a guy in there. But it's like, sometimes this happens where it's like, if I'm with, like, you, I've been with you guys at a restaurant, people go, oh, Arquette's, I love you. And they think you're in the band. So it's like, it's kind of a...
I don't deny it either.
So I wake up and I'm just like, oh God, this is a nightmare. So I immediately messaged the girl who's posted this thing, because you could, tell who, the person is in Chelsea. And I'm like, hey, it's Max. I totally think it's funny, but, could you please take that down? My family would be probably kind of bummed to see this. And she does not check her Facebook. I'm like, what the hell? And then I added her, because sometimes, it goes like straight into like the spam folder or whatever. Nothing. Hours pass by. The likes are going up at like 11 a.m. It's like 800 likes. At 1 p.m. it's like over 1,000 likes. It's by far the most popular thing in this, like, happening in Queens. I'm getting text messages from random people going, are you seeing this? Like our friend Carly in Hamilton, she said her friend sent her the screen cap of the Facebook post and was like, this is all over social media, Queens. The guys in the band are like freaking out because they think it might like become like a huge thing on BuzzFeed or something, which I think is giving us a little more credit. And I called Lauren. I was like, Lauren, but the thing with Lauren's very like wise and mature, and she knows like the kind of idiots, because it was basically what happened. It was the perfect storm of the fact that me, Dan, and Greg hadn't hung out with each other, so we were like in a long time, so we were extra giddy to be around each other. It's the perfect storm that Dan happens to be single at the moment. It was the perfect copy. Greg was not apologizing for anything. Greg was like, "This is my best work yet. It's going on my resume."
Did the girl ever get back to you?
So I found her email address. I just like Googled her name in Queens, and she's like in the physics department or whatever. And she messaged, I messaged her, and she got back to me later that night. She said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Like, she reacted how I assumed she'd react, because most people aren't trying to be malicious. They're just like trying to drunkenly have some fun. And she said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. Hope I didn't cause any problems. I took it down." So anyway, problem solved. So if anybody's listening out there, there's no Dan in the band, and Greg is a great copywriter.
All right. Let's move on to David Arquette. Max, you weren't there for this one. I think you were starring in someone's Tinder profile pic. Shane, you were there for David Arquette, and you were excited about this
Very
one.
excited, yeah. I think it's the most I ever talked in one of these sit-ins.
You did?
I said two things, maybe 10 words in total, I said. What was funny, too, about that one, which I found really interesting, was it's the only time a guest had been waiting for us.
I know.
Normally, they're late, and we're nervously kind of thinking of shit or how weird it's going to be. But when we walked in, David Arquette's just sitting in the office, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, totally.
Like him waiting on us. Like, we've hit the big time.
He was cool, though. I mean, like I said,
I'm a big Howard Stern fan, so I had listened to him, and I love how David's very open, and he's kind of hard to get the reins in. So I feel like we're like-minded people a little bit, because we say stupid shit a lot, and we're always getting ourselves into trouble.
Yeah.
So he's like, I don't say spirit animal like I know you do, but if I was the type to say that, he would be my spirit animal.
David Arquette.
Yes.
So you relate to him on some level after hearing about all these appearances on Stern, seeing the movies he's been in.
Yeah, sitting by him, the whole interview, I was just like, I can't believe I'm sitting beside him.
He's a fascinating guy with like sort of a very long story. Obviously, his sister, Patricia Arquette, won an Oscar last year for Boyhood. He talks about all that. He talks about his play. He's actually doing a play here in Toronto called Sherlock.
Going into this interview, I didn't know much about David Arquette. He wasn't really on my cultural radar. Like, I knew obviously who he was, but then going through sort of like listening to the Howard Stern stuff and preparing the questions, he's amazing. Like life.
Yeah.
He's seen a lot.
You know, and he says that a lot in the interview. You know, he says he wants to be present and in the moment and sort of like authentic. And I feel like that comes
and how
across.
he hates bullshitters, like when he was talking about that briefly.
And Stern, in one of the interviews, was trying to get him to say like that he didn't like Courtney Cox's new like musician boyfriend. And he's like, nah, he's a really nice guy. Like he's not really filled with a lot of like hate or resentment or something. He's sort of just like, nah, everyone's cool. It's like, I think that's why people like him and why he comes by it all very often.
Well, once Howard went out to dinner with Courtney and not him, and he called Howard furious.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's like, this is the ultimate betrayal. Yeah. So he's pretty like emotional and mercurial, I guess they call it. Yeah. Which is always entertaining, makes good radio.
If you found out Max went out to dinner with Alexandra without you, would you call him angry?
It's hard. Max has that thing that Arquette has. He's so lovable. I'd have like an internal combustion happening. Because I know Max, he's very flirtatious and grabby. Like with guys and girls. But I think he does it with the guys so he can get away with it with the girls. Like, I treat everybody like this, Shaney boy.
All right, let's get to David Arquette. It's kind of like a job interview, I feel like.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
I don't want it to be that.
No, I hope don't say anything. What are your worst qualities?
Do people ask that in job interviews?
I think that's like the catchy question.
Yeah.
Then you have to slide it in with like a really good thing.
Yeah. Like I work too hard. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my worst quality.
I just never give up,
How you been? How you liking Toronto?
I'm good. Are we going?
We're going. We just jump right into it. That's how we do
amazing.
it.
I love Toronto. It's one of the greatest cities in the world. I mean, I have dear friends here. I love the nightlife. I love the sort of We went to the Jays game yesterday, which was incredible.
That was an amazing game. We were watching it as well last night.
Yeah, the fans are out of control.
Yeah.
But it's really awesome.
How much rehearsal have you been doing for the...
We did 6 shows in Los Angeles. We had 2.5 weeks of rehearsal, which isn't much. So to learn like 2 hours of dialogue in 2.5 weeks was kind of challenging, to say the least.
It seems like you have such a sort of like diverse resume, you know what I mean, with like wrestling. You're a big Lakers fan.
Yeah.
Like when you were a kid, did you sort of hop around from interest to interest a lot like this?
Really, I guess so. I mean, it primarily always revolved around either acting or art. I mean, those were my 2 favorite things. I was a graffiti artist for a while. I mean, still sort of dabble in street art. But, yeah, so that stuff and putting on little plays when I was younger and in high school. Yeah, so those were my real sort of passions.
Was there a moment when you were younger or sort of maybe a movie you saw where you were like, I want to be an actor?
When I was really young, it was just something we did. Like, we played theater games and stuff like that growing up. And I watched my dad do improvisation a lot. So then that really gave me a bug for that side of it, that sort of comedy element. But in high school, I was doing graffiti and running around and getting in a bit of trouble. But then these girls approached me and said, do you want to try out for this play? They can't find anybody to be in the role. So I tried out for it, and I got to ride a motorcycle like through the auditorium in my high school. I was like, awesome. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so... And one time I rode up and I crashed into the set. I was like, oh, you gotta keep going. But it was fun. It was about, it's called The Seventh Son, about this, like, James Dean kind of Marlon Brando character breaks down outside of a woman's prison. Then he goes in, they take him in, and he kind of, like, has affairs with all the prisoners. So it was kind of an epic storyline. Total, like, you know, trashy B-movie style.
Did you audition for the play or try out for it?
Yeah, I had an audition. It was a musical.
But because
I'm the seventh son, seventh son, I don't do like to have some fun. Yeah, it was ridiculous. Yeah. My friends were in the back when I was auditioning. They're all like, stupid blood. I was just sitting up there. I forgot what I auditioned to. Oh, like Run Around Sue or some old...
So you sang a song for the audition?
Yeah, you had to, yeah.
Had you done much singing up until that point?
Not really, no. No. Not my strong suit, but I played Frankenfurter in Rocky Horror on stage. It was my first professional play. So I had some experience in that.
Is there a difference, I mean, as far as preparation goes, for sort of stage acting and television or film acting? Completely.
I mean, television and film, you go scene by scene. You have multiple takes. You know, I like to be in the moment, so I don't like to get my dialogue down too much on TV. That could be a problem for some people. Like, you know, if you have a lot of stuff to do in a day, you know, you should get it really down. But sometimes I just like to find it, you know, you know, you never know what you're going to get from a different actor, so you rehearse, you find it, and hopefully when you start filming, you got it. But if you mess up, you can start over. That's not the case in plays. You just have to be on all the time. You have to be ready. You have to be ready for your next line. You have to jump on cues, and you have to be, you know, remember the blocking, and, you know, just be sort of in the flow of it. And that's kind of the greatest part.
I mean, is there ever a moment sort of in the play where it kind of starts to fall apart? And
yeah, I mean, it happened in a rehearsal. I was like, I can't do this. And, I stormed off the stage. I was freaking out. I was literally like, I'm going crazy. It's too much. I don't think I can do this. And that was like the day before we opened. So then the next day is like, we sort of got it all together and it all worked out. But
I guess in a moment like that live, when there's an audience in there, do you just have to power through it? Do you just try to stay in the character, or are you sort of thinking outside yourself?
Yeah, you have to power through it. You know, that time I didn't, but I learned a really good lesson, and that's like the show must go on. I mean, old lesson, right? and then you can't really abandon your co-stars. So, and if you don't go through it, the whole show stops. I mean, and it was a preview anyway, so I could have just said, let's take this over or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you kind of have to just go. We only had 2.5 weeks to prep for it, so that's not quite enough time to learn 2 hours of dialogue.
Right, exactly.
In an old English and with an accent.
Jumping back to sports a bit.
Yeah.
Are you a big Lakers fan?
I am, but I'm a bit of a fair weather fan when it comes to anything. I don't, I don't like live or die with sports.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? I was married before, and her father was dying, and he was this huge Alabama fan. And then once he started getting sicker and sicker, he was like, Alabama, it doesn't matter anymore. You know what I mean?
Puts things in perspective.
Yeah, So
sports
that's
aren't
how I
that
look at
heavy.
it. I like the moment. I like seeing a great performance as an athlete. I like being there, the connection with the crowd. I like, winning and, that whole feeling. But, it's not the end of the world to me. I used to be like, the Dodgers would lose. I'd be like, oh.
Yeah, sorry about
I'd sit there like in the dark with just the TV on, like, yeah, we can do this. But, no, less like that.
You moved beyond that.
Yeah. I mean, I love when it gets into the role and it gets exciting. That's what's so exciting about the Jays right now. They're just killing it, and it's like, there's all this momentum and this fun. And
We're in a moment.
Yes.
You can feel it.
Exactly. And they have to ride it through.
Here's something that I sort of always wanted to know. With those Lakers tickets and those seats, is there a celebrity hierarchy? How do you come about your tickets for those games? Because I've seen some pretty sweet seats.
My friend has those tickets. I split half season tickets with another person, and I was like up sort of, a good 20, 30 rows up. So I was going all the time. And then there's this little back room where it's called the chairman's room, where you can go and sort of has a private bar and it has a bathroom, and it's not as it's a little out of the whole public, public thing, a little VIP kind of room. And then I met this guy, and we became really good friends, and he's got these floor seats. So he'll call me up sometimes and just be like, you want to come? So that's how I get on there. A lot of the agencies have them, and a lot of the big clients who are fans will ask for them. Especially if they have a movie coming out or something
Don't
like
want
that.
to place people in those seats, visible.
Yeah, but I've gotten to know a lot of the sort of, Jeannie Buss, a lot of the Laker people.
Yeah.
They're really cool
Jeannie, Jim, all that.
Yeah, and if I want to just buy tickets, I actually like sitting a little further back. It's just kind of fun, a little up. You get a better perspective. Yeah, you're in with the crowd. It's not as sort of you feel like you're being watched. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't like that feeling. I got to sit in Jack Nicholson's seats once with a friend of mine who got the tickets.
Seriously?
And that was epic.
Wow.
Because that was this classic seat. You're right next to the other bench. But my friend got too wasted, and then we got kicked out.
You got booted from the Lakers game?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it early on?
It was my friend that got booted. But, yeah. It gets pretty wild. You know what I mean? You get pretty caught up in it. And by the end of it, you're like, ah!
Yeah. Your sister won an Oscar recently, and she brought up sort of gender equality payment scale. Did you know she was going to bring that up? Is that something that she's talked about?
No, I tried to get her to say Baba Booey on it. She was like, it's inappropriate. I was like, just if you get flustered at some point, just say Baba Booey. You'll have a whole fan base that'll be love it. She's like, not the right time. So I think she made a better choice in going with gender equality.
Are you a big Stern fan?
Yeah, I love Stern. We have our ups and downs, but I love him.
Did I read that you were a celebrity intern for Stern or something?
I did. First time I wrote him a letter that I was a huge fan, that my grandfather was in radio. I'd love to come in and just intern and see so they had me on, and then it started this sort of relationship where I'd come on and a few times and have some breakdowns on there.
Mm-hmm. Are you on the up with him right now? Or?
Yeah, I love him. You know what I mean? I love the show, but it's always something where you go on a show and you get in trouble for saying something stupid.
He has an ability to sort of get a lot out of people.
Yeah.
His interviews are epic.
Yeah, he's good at it.
Actually, I guess when you're friends, would you consider him a friend?
Yeah.
With somebody in the press, can it be a true friendship, or is there sort of always sort of something there?
Yeah, I mean, we're not super tight, you know what I mean? So, but once in a while you see him and it feels like you're friends, but it's not like if I'm going through a hard time I call him. There are people I do, but he was really generous. We had a really sort of off the record conversation that was very supportive and really cool, and it's a different side. He was explaining to me, he's like, it's different on the radio, this is character in the sense you play, and I got it,
Like he's like, I need to entertain when I'm there.
Yeah,
and then
he'll ask the hard questions, like, it's, it's hard to like even say like certain things because you don't want to like, break someone's trust, but yeah.
Speak out of school.
Yeah, but it is essentially like he's more provocative. He needs to bring up the kind of stuff that'll, you push you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you end up talking about your exes or your certain things, and it's just like, and then that's the kind of stuff people pick up and then run with, and then all the interviews you do in the future, like, what about this that you said about this person and that?
Then referencing these things where you're in these interviews, you're a pretty open person with all of this sort of stuff. When you do an interview like that, do you walk away and go, oh shit, what did I say? Or is it cathartic and you're like, no, I was glad I had that conversation?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's sometimes you just sort of kick yourself for some of that stuff, and sometimes it's like great just to be honest and real.
Yeah. In your sister's speech, you sort of mentioned some people that, inspire her. I mean, is there anyone in particular that you find inspiring?
Definitely my sister, my brothers and sisters. My parents were really an inspiration, my grandfather. Aside from that, Garry Shandling's really a huge influence for me.
Wow,
he's
yeah,
just such a supportive person. And just in general, he's like mentored, just all of these comedians and just comedic writers, and he's just really a great, he's very Buddha-like, he's a Zen quality, and, talk to you about stuff or personal stuff and kind of put it in perspective because he has had a lot of, personal sort of, knowledge about this business and how to, not let it own you and how to keep it all kind of cool. And Quincy Jones is another real inspiration. He's a incredible guy. You sit with him and he'll tell a story about, when I was with John Coltrane and we were going down to Harlem, and I'm like, well, back up for a second. John Coltrane, he tells this one story, he goes, the Beatles tried to get me to see this Maharishi guy, and I was like, why do I want to see him? I was like, wait a second, you just just glanced over the Beatles, dissing the Beatles. I don't want to go see your guru, really.
Yeah.
This is just a story. You just oh yeah, I saw this guy on the corner. That's his stories. It's absolutely insane.
He's just this well of all these sort of anecdotes I'd imagine of
incredible
these historic figures. Speaking of the Beatles, I went and saw Paul McCartney on Saturday night.
Oh,
were you
awesome.
in town for that? Did you go? He just played the ACC.
Oh, how cool is that?
It was amazing. It was one of the best experiences of my life.
Yeah, he's incredible. Yeah, great guy.
Actually, another thing that sort of comes through in a lot of your interviews, and I think your performances, you're sort of this really sort of gregarious and sort of this empathetic spirit. I mean, where do you think that comes from? Is that your upbringing?
I guess so. I don't know. I like to be in the moment. I like to be real. I really don't like people who are fake and full shit. So I just try to stay connected with real people. I make mistakes and I own it. You know what I mean? So I think there's a human quality that a lot of people, when you're in this business for a long time, lose. They lose touch and they start believing some of this ego stuff. And to me, it's the opposite. The more you could stay grounded and, with people. And it's hard because this is this balance of you have to have a kind of strong ego to, be up there and, be assertive and all this stuff. But you also can't lose touch with I like the weirdos of the world. You know what I mean? Right. I like the real kind of nerdy, funky people. So when I can have that relationship with that and just keep that true, and then find the sort of quirkiness in characters and that kind of feel is really where the truth is. Because once you become fake, then how are you going to be real on camera?
Mm-hmm. I guess going forward, theater acting, television acting, you're saying art. Is there anything you could see yourself doing outside of those things? Or anything you want to do?
I mean, it's always great to have a regular job. You know what I mean? So a series is always a great opportunity, especially when it's something that people love. So you're playing this character and you're part of this show, that you have the right pieces together and it's ongoing. People really love tuning in and doing a show that's, for me, it's Homeland right now, or whatever, it was, Breaking Bad or whatever it is. But if you can play a character like that, that's just so rich and all these working pieces, that's sort of a dream place to be, because then you have security, as far as work goes. Because as an actor, you're just like from one thing to another. You never know what's going to happen. Yeah. You never know if something. Do all these independent movies that are cool, but they're not like great. So it's good to like whenever something hits, and then it's like, oh, all these pieces come together in the right way. Then it's a great place to be, because then you feel like you're part of something really special, and that doesn't happen a lot. And the longer you're in the business, the longer you start being able to recognize when that's actually happening.
Do you have anything to ask, Shani boy?
Yeah, I wanted to know if I could have a photo.
Yeah, of course, totally.
I'm nervous sitting here waiting to ask.
No, not at all. See, I don't care about any of that stuff.
Welcome back. You just listened to David Arquette, and now we are here for the dessert of the Mike How Much podcast, the part where Shane comes on and talks about a movie. And like I said off the top of the show, all three of us have seen Steve Jobs. Not the number one movie at the box office this weekend, but the number one movie in my heart at the box office this weekend. I loved this film. Shane, what are you thinking?
Well, we might not have a lot to talk about. I feel like we waste a lot of the dessert off the top, but I also like the movie. I know with Martian, we kind of wanted to kill each other, but...
Max, how did you feel about Steve Jobs?
I liked it a lot.
Am I the only love on this panel?
No. I'd give it like a solid 8.3.
I had some minor problems with. Ultimately, it's a good film. Okay, Kate Winslet. Did anyone notice that her dialect completely changed from the first portion to the middle portion?
Yeah, her Polish accent got thicker as the movie went along.
It drove me insane.
I did notice it. So the movie's broken into sort of like three parts. So in that third one, I thought her Polish accent was way thicker than
she's been in America for like an extra 20 years.
Yeah,
she was the Benjamin Button of accents. It just devolved as the movie went. Like she starts off, she's like, "Hey, want to grab a beer?" And she's like, "I like coffee." Like it was very weird. I don't know Polish accents, obviously, but it got very weird and distracting for me. And I liked she put a little affectation on her voice in the opening scene, and I liked her kind of weird voice she had. So that part was a little distracting.
I noticed it.
Yeah. And a couple of the, obviously it's a movie, and they wanted to set it kind of like a play where everything happens in an isolated location, usually these convention centers where he does his speech or whatever, where he does his, what are they called?
Product launches.
Product launches. So it's based around 3 big product launches. But like, his daughter's about to leave him at one point, and she's like about to get in the car. He's like, "Hey, how about I invent some music for your little pocket there?" And she's like, "What?" And then he's like, "Yeah." She's like, "You can do that?" He's like, 1,000 songs. And then she's like, "Okay, I'll come around and listen to your launch." I was like, "Shut up." Like that would ever happen.
It was very touching.
It was touching. I'll say that. I'm saying these are little things that bother me that ultimately I dismiss. And this is one of those movies where it does have like a little bit lulls, but it pays off like tenfold at the end. Like all the lulls are worth it. Like when it gets to it ties everything together very nicely and gets you very emotional. And I was just thinking of you at one point because I know you really love the Wes Anderson movie, It's Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yes.
And you love the line about how we're all animals, kind of, and like like he relates himself to a computer. He's like, "I've got a flawed design" at one point.
Oh, that line.
Yeah. So I'm like, "Oh, Mikey would go nuts at that line." And I knew you had seen it, so I was kind of seeing it through your eyes.
I love the Seth Rogen line where
he was fantastic.
Seth Rogen was really good at it, and he's always just sitting in the crowd. It's very play-like, where it's like the same sets. Throughout, and they were kind of yelling at each other. It's at the 1998 product launch because Steve Wozniak wants Jobs to acknowledge all the work that he and his team put into launching Apple II, which is like their first computer. And Rogen has a line is like, "You don't have to be basically an asshole.
You can be talented and decent. It's not,
it's not binary."
Exactly.
It was just a very computery kind of term to use.
Fantastic.
But it was killer. It was like just it's like you can be both. You can be decent and talented. You don't have to be an asshole and talented.
This movie was front to back dialogue.
Well,
and Sorkin, and it was so good and so well framed, and it was like a play, like you said. But I was compelled the whole time. I thought Fassbender was like I couldn't stop watching, and I was just so absorbed in everything about it. And yeah, it was.
Yeah,
fantastic.
actually, one note about Sorkin. It's funny because obviously he's like a genius writer, But I wasn't crazy about Newsroom, and I think the trick with Sorkin, like if you're gonna be that dialogue heavy, I feel like there's like a 50% more dialogue or 100% more dialogue in a Sorkin movie versus every other drama that's out there. Is it needs to be paired with a really good director and a really good sort of director of photography. Is that
cinematographer?
A cinematographer, because Newsroom got so bland because it was under like the harsh like fluorescent lights of a newsroom the whole time. So hearing people like have these like sort of like long-winded, really wordy conversations back and forth like under fluorescent lights is just like a little harsh to listen to and to be like kept focused on. But this movie, and same thing with The Social Network, was awesome to look at.
Oh, when it was raining in the boardroom.
Oh, that scene's amazing with Jeff Daniels.
Do you
when
think
Jobs gets pushed out.
Do you think the logic is like that it's like the circuitry of a computer, how they made it look like shit was like running through almost like the inside of a computer? I thought that was symbolism there.
It very well could be. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's the trick with Sorkin is like it has to be with like a bad, and same thing with Social Network, just like looked amazing. It needs to be.
And you need to, with Sorkin too, especially with his dialogue, he can make all characters sound like the same character. Yeah. So you need that dissension between, or the different, making the characters different. And what's his name? Lead guy. Fassbender's such a good actor. Yeah. And then Seth Rogen is such a defined persona that you can really separate the dialogue. So I did have little things bother me. Like, you know, like they're like 30 seconds, Steve, till you got the thing. And he's like, okay. And then a guy will walk in and be like, here's why you're a dickwad. And then he'll have to deal with the problem for like seemingly like 10 minutes when he only has 30 seconds to go. He acknowledged it though at one point. Like they made light of it because obviously he knew audience members would be thinking like, why the f*** are so many problems happening mere seconds before he walks on stage?
Yeah.
So he's like, what? Does everyone go to a bar and get drunk and call me an asshole right before I go on stage?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I was glad they hung a lantern on that moment.
And even though that kind of construct felt fictional, like it's like, okay, does it unroll this way? I'm like, I don't know, but I think it's doing what like a play would do. It's like it used like this storytelling and framing device to get all the information we needed across and made for so much compelling like drama and like sort of
and
like,
the editing at the end was fucking brilliant.
With that track, I don't know what that music track was.
Such a good
but
song.
So you're swelling up inside. And also, I'll say another thing. Seth Rogen obviously is a very famous actor, and Fassbender has become quite famous. I very quickly stopped thinking like, oh, I'm watching Seth Rogen and Fassbender act. And I believed that they were friends. Right. Like, I believed there was this shared history between Wozniak and Jobs, and that, like, how Jobs, like, I love too when Jobs is like, you know, when Wozniak says some terrible things after Jobs gets pushed out, he's like, did they make you say it or did you say it? And then Wozniak's like, no, I said it. And he's like, it's okay, Woz. He's like, you got a lifetime pass from me. And then Woz's like, I get a lifetime pass from you? Yeah. Like, you don't know how to code. You don't know how to build. Like, what do you do? He's like, I did everything. It's like, all of that stuff, like the animosity between them, but then the respect, but then the lack of respect that they talk about at the end. All of that was so fascinating.
Yeah, the line, hey, Steve Jobs, obviously we could talk about Jobs for hours as a person. That line about it's like, you're just like the first violinist. Like, you're really good at playing your instrument. Like, I play the orchestra.
That's great.
And that is that sort of self-serving talk that like a sociopath.
It's so self-aggrandizing and
it's great copy though.
It is.
Oh, amazing copy. Yeah. But it's cool.
I guess that's that. Go see Steve Jobs. All right, so you gave it an 8.3.
I give it a cool.
The max rating system, that's all you need.
You know what movie we should talk about next week, maybe?
What's that?
It Follows.
Oh, yeah. That just came out on Netflix, too.
Have
and
you
we
guys seen
saw it
that?
in the theater. Yeah. You know what? Save it for next week. Right. Next week, we're talking about It Follows.
Oh, man. Jeez. I saw that last night. I hate...
Max next week. That's it. That's all. That is our episode. Thank you.
Subscribe to the damn thing.
Subscribe to the damn thing. It says Max. As always, all the artwork you see for the Mike on Much podcast is done by Jenna Gregory from jennasdoodles.com. You can follow us at Mike on Much on Instagram and Twitter. The Mike on Much podcast is produced by Max Kerman. I am your host, Mike Vierman. See you next week.
If we don't die on the weekend.